Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to N4's third edition of the Lightbulb Moments series. My name is Philippa Piri, Knowledge Manager at IOCO and a certified APMP practitioner. I will be facilitating this session today. And if you missed our last session, I'm sure you're very excited to be here as well. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping rules. Please note that this session is being recorded and the link will be made available. To help keep background noise and distractions at a minimum, please stay muted and keep your cameras off except for the panelists. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the chat box. My colleagues will be monitoring these and we will answer them at the end of the discussion. And then the contact details will also be shared at the end of this webinar. So what's on our agenda today? I'm going to tell you a little bit about our Lightbulb Moments series. I'm going to introduce our two panelists, and once we know more about our experts, we will then kick off our discussion. Okay, so Lightbulb Moments is a series in which we explore technology and digital transformation in the bid and proposal development world. As we all know, the impact of the coronavirus is being felt by all businesses around the world. And industry insights show that this has accelerated the adoption of digital technologies. Across the globe, we find that leaders are navigating a broad range of interrelated issues that span from keeping their employees and customers safe, shoring up cash and liquidity, reorienting operations, as well as navigating complicated government support programs. Technology offers opportunities to rebuild your business around the customer and to create a truly connected and highly profitable enterprise. In today's edition of Lightbulb Moments, we're going to talk to proposal specialists from the USA and South Africa about saving time and reducing risk through content and language analysis. We will explore ways to improve the efficiency, clarity, and compliance of mission-critical business documents. Now, before our panelists share their views on the benefits of clear and more transparent business communications, let me tell you a little bit more about them. John Nolan is the Chief Commercial Officer with Visible Thread. He supports Fortune 500 clients and government agencies improve the quality of internal and external communications programs. This work includes the use of a language analysis platform to improve customer-first programs and deliver objective and measurable outcomes. John directly supports the global bid teams in Airbus, Boeing, and Microsoft. He helps their bid teams succeed by adding measurement, automation, and plain language policy components to their existing processes. This helps bid response turnaround times, improves compliance, and delivers dollar bottom line benefits. Welcome, John. It's very lovely to have you with us here today.
Thank you, Philippa. Good morning,
everybody.
Thank you.
Our second panelist is our very own Izan Kluter-Hamilton, a certified APMP professional who is a compassionate leader who started her career at IBM before honing her passion for winning business at other global and local concerns. Her rare leadership style is rooted in her innate ability to develop people. She has held various senior management positions in business development, marketing, and bid management over the past 20 plus years. Izan is skilled in thought leadership as well as strategy development. Welcome again, Izan. It's nice to have you with us this morning.
Thank you.
You've been the only consistent panelist in all of these editions. Okay, let's get started and kick off the discussion and the reason why we're here. John, I'm going to start with you. We always like to create some context, and maybe you can let our attendees or audience know what is content and language analysis.
Yeah, good morning again, Philippa, and thanks Izan for the invitation to meet everybody. It's different things to different people, I would say. First off, generally it's content analysis is a way of studying and retrieving meaningful information from documents. And of course, all of us who are working in the bids and proposals area realize how painful that can be if you're reviewing large, complex RFPs and trying to really understand what they're asking for. And there's a lot of ambiguity. And for me, working in bids and customer experience, customer first programs, it's really understanding the language. Are we objectively choosing the correct language to communicate back to the client with? Is it the language of the customer rather than the language of the organization that we're part of? Because every company has an institutional voice. We all have our own jargon. That's not commonly understood by our customers. And there's a lot of assumptions worldwide in companies that customers do understand the language our internals speak. So the closer we can get to the language of the customer, the more impactful and the higher the quality of the response, and the more trust that can be built. So for us, it's a core part of what we're about, basically to help detox communication so that everybody can access it, can understand, and that we're using descriptors that are acceptable by the industry, by the demographic, by the persona, the individual persona that we're speaking to and with. So that's what it means to me. But Zan, you may have some other observations.
Yes, so when I think about content and language analysis, I often think about structure, simplification, using plain language rather than complex and convoluted words. And I think it's very much connected to customer experience, because if you don't use your customer's voice, like you said, you don't detox your own language, you create that barrier between your own organization and the customer's organization. So I think content, language analysis, it's probably a topic that people might assume is theoretical, but actually it is a very practical thing that we should embed in all our writing, whether it is proposal writing, marketing writing, websites, contracts, packaging, any sort of form where we communicate with a customer should have the same tone of voice, and that's part of language analysis.
Yeah, I think that last point is particularly valid, because there's multiple touch points to the customer or the prospective customer. It's not just the RFP. It is the website. It is the communications. Increasingly, we want customers for life. So we want the communications that flow to them through the journey of their life relationship with us to be simple, consistent, and accessible.
From a customer's perspective, I mean, when I put myself in the shoes of a customer, I don't want to think that my supplier or my contractor is schizophrenic. I want them they need to sound like the same person I'm talking to, regardless of the touch points where I'm connecting with them.
Okay, I hear you, Zan. You're both speaking about detoxing, plain language, making sure that we're speaking the customer's language. But one question I have is, we're all pretty smart people, and when we write a proposal, do we really need to dumb those words down?
You know what? You're right. We are smart people, and that's exactly why we need to dumb it down, or rather use plain language. Because I saw this study that was done at the I think it's the Thomas Cooley Law School at Western Michigan University, where they analyzed a lot of legal documents. And the result of this was that the more educated a person is, the more specialist their knowledge is, the more they preferred plain language. So people with the highest level of expertise and literacy, they often have so much to read. So whether it is your CIO, your CTO, whoever's reading your proposal, these guys are busy. They don't have time to trudge through all these pages and pages of complicated writing. So Often it's an excuse that people use for not using plain language, is that the audience is educated and smart, and they'll get the dog and they understand it. But it doesn't mean that they want to read it that way.
Yeah, they're busy people, and time is money for them as well. But one of the biggest challenges I see in bid centers and big groups and companies generally is, if you think about the workflow of content, how it's produced, there are a lot of contributors to, maybe a response to a bid or a publication. These are subject matter experts that are expert in their area, and usually the proposal manager, director, or editor needs to bring that into a form that people can consume. Increasingly, that editorial team is smaller and smaller. And you've also got to push within organizations that everybody wants to be a blogger, everybody feels the need that they need to do this, but there's no editorial control over what's getting produced so much across distributed companies. And look, it starts for me with, you said it earlier, the customer first, the customer experience. If we start with the customer, how do we want to address them? What is the writing policy to that persona, to that demographic? And and then you get into areas of thinking about, well, how do we measure that, and how do we do that consistently? And that's what we work a lot on, is identifying key indicators that can help you consistently communicate plainly, simply, by just looking at the length of the sentence. There shouldn't be any more than 20 words in a sentence. Avoid using passive voice, use active voice. And then what's the grade level of the recipient, i.e. how many years schooling have they had? Depending on what sector you're in. Like, for example, in certain US states, in Florida, it's grade level 5 for insurance and health programs. South Africa brought out one of the first original plain language acts, actually, back whatever it was, must be 15 years ago now. But and with a culture that has multiple non-native English speakers maybe also participating in the community, we've got to be sensitive to that and make sure that what we're producing is accessible to all. Now, that doesn't come from us telling a company how they should write. It really comes from within the company. It starts with, is this important? And then it trickles down and, okay, it is important, but how do we do it? And that's what we find is, a lot of people buy into the concept of plain language, keeping it simple, to be honest. But then they don't consistently do it because there's no easy way of tracking and tracing what's actually getting produced within an organization. So that's the area that we've done a lot of work in, particularly over the last 5 years, helping organizations when they've defined their policy. They'll already have their brand policy created. They won't have too much detail about the writing style that should be used. There will be some top level. Usually you need to kind of tease that out a little bit about, where's the important customer base? Where's the important demographic that we're going after? How do we want to express ourselves to them? Okay, well, that's how we're going to do it in this campaign. Now, do we want to sustain that terminology going forward in other campaigns so that we're smart? And it comes about, finding that organization that wants to work on their business to improve, not just in their business. And once you find that type of character, if I can call the company the character, and they've got that sort of ambition, then it's really about how do we do this? How do we fix it? Look, it's tough for everybody nowadays. We talked earlier on about different verticals being affected by COVID, but let's be honest, everybody in every industry has probably got to do more with less. So we've got to compete with more people. There's new technology coming and everything. So how do we get ahead of that? Well, look, you've probably, as an organization, invested heavily in digital. You've probably, as an organization, invested in CRM and everything else, and training. And the question when I'm talking to people to begin with, I say, well, You've got a policy for security. You've got a policy for health and safety. For your finance. What's your policy of communicating to your customers? And, in competitive markets, isn't that even more important than ever? That we really become scientific about how we structure our communications to them. And particularly if it's going to give you a competitive advantage. So
I think that's an important point, John, because it is about the customer. It is about the customer experience, and how do you add to your competitive advantage? Pippa?
Very, very interesting and very insightful. I think I'd also be curious to hear from our audience, if they have any communication policies, as John is citing, and bringing it back to customer experience. In our first edition, we spoke a lot about customer experience. Izan, what do you think plain language and customer experience have to do with each other? I mean, I know John has explained a little bit about how we must speak to our customers' language, but do you mind putting it more in context for us?
Yeah.
I lost you for a second. Was that question directed to John or to me? Sorry, my connection dropped.
Go for it, Izan. Ladies first.
Of course.
Yay. Thank you. Customer experience has to do with all the impressions that a customer gets from your organization across all the touch points we spoke about earlier on your website, your adverts, and all of that. So if the language that you use in your business is not customer friendly or human friendly, or even just if the language you use is plain wrong, can you imagine what that does to that experience and to that trust relationship that you're trying to build with a customer? So let me give an example. Let's talk about words that are used wrong, and this is lower grade level stuff. It's not even the smart people stuff. So using words that are wrong, either because you thought it meant something else, or it sounds like something, but you don't get the word quite right. And sometimes you use a word that doesn't even exist. How often do we hear the word irregardless? I mean, that word does not exist. It's not a word. Irregardless is not a word. But you think it's a word. It sounds like a word. Someone's blogging on behalf of your company and they use this word, and there's a credibility killer down. So another example is the difference between insure and insure. Very simple, but massive differences between what the actual meaning of the word is. If you write say for example, you write an advert, just a plain advert for a car dealership, and you say that you insure a great deal on a used vehicle, but you accidentally use the word insure, it means completely different. Two different things. Because now you're talking about car insurance, where insure is guarantee and insure means to protect. So just one letter can make such a big difference in the meaning of what it is that you're communicating with a customer. So in that experience, going back to, is the language you use credible? Does it build credibility? Does it sound like you're talking to one company? Or are you wondering what went wrong? Did they change marketing agencies, or are they changing trajectory and they becoming a whole different organization? So to come back to your question, customer experience, plain language, it's linked, irregardless of what you may think.
Regardless of what we may think, I think over and over the topic of customers buy from people they trust and they like, and we need to ensure that we're always creating that feeling of trust for our customers. John, your thoughts around the link of customer experience and the language, and the plain language?
Yeah, look, I think Izan articulated really well. For me, we've got to start with the customer. We've got to use the customer's language if we want to build trust and to have a long-term customer for life. So how do we do that? We can do that as humans. We can do that pretty easily if we meet people face to face. You can understand the tone. You can understand the descriptors that they're using. But when we go to the publication cycle, there's a lot more people that we're communicating to and with. So we need to make we need to think about how we should be expressing to a particular community, and is it the correct language that is appropriate to them. And there's so many different dynamics. The examples that Azan mentioned about specific words, you can take that example into, we do some work with government agencies, for example, and Australia. You can no longer call people Aboriginal. They have to be Aboriginal, Torres Straits Islanders. There's these disciplines. In Canada, it's native population. These things are very important that we use the right descriptors for. And then we've got the whole change of, depending on the age of whoever is creating the content. They may have grown up where they would have said chairperson, or not chairperson, but chairman, whereas it's not appropriate to be using that in publications anymore. It doesn't mean that the person that uses that term is a bad person or anything. It's just the world has moved on, and everyone has become a little bit more woke in terms of how they're addressed. Maybe this has come about and is a greater issue because of COVID, that people are more sensitive to these things. But he, she, they, we see this appearing in how you should be addressed. Like this is a dynamic that's happening in the world that we're working in, and we've got to be sensitive to that. And look, it's a huge task. And how do you realistically do it as a person? Well, it's hard, and you've got to. I think it comes back to, what is the policy, of our organization? How should we be addressing whomever the target market is, and then building up lists of descriptors that are appropriate, and by extension, descriptors that aren't appropriate anymore. And that's a constant task of evolution as we go forward. That's the world we're in. And if you think about a further issue is that, everybody is aware of the social media challenges in the world today, and everything gets overemphasized almost. So you've got to be more careful about these things than ever before, So there's these pressures that all come to kind of build a business case if you're talking to a leader in the business. And if they ask you, well, why is this important? For all of these reasons. But probably the single biggest one is that you build trust with your customer. And if you start there, good things will happen.
I agree, 100%. Now, I think a question that's in our minds is, as you're creating your proposal, how do you improve your readability or make sure that it's simple, it's in plain language, it's in the customer's language, and you're, in essence, writing plain English? Is on some tips around that?
So in the proposal world, we do refer to it as readability. So plain language readability, how do you create it? There's many ways that you can do it. I love to quote Tom Stan's fluff, guff, geek, and weasel, which are the 4 things you need to avoid. John mentioned active voice already, shorter sentences, 20 words, shorter paragraphs, easy to follow structures. But I think the best way is to fast forward into the current century and use technology, because we are humans, we are fallible, and we can't remember everything. So the best way to implement plain language and improve readability of all your written communication, my opinion, is technology.
And John, your opinion around that, or do you agree as well that is the solution?
Well, thank you so much, Azan and Philippa. That's what we're about, effectively, just to be open kimono with everyone. We come from an IT background where we were involved in very large IT programs. And, the biggest issues that we were dealing with were around language and around scope creep coming into the language due to misinterpretation of what was included. And that set us out on a journey in building what is our platform now, which effectively helps you simplify. So in plain language, what is it? It's a simple platform that is cloud or on-premise based that allows you to sheep dip your copy and to measure the objectivity and simple writing that you've created. And this is very powerful because if you are managing the bid or the editor for the bid, you get a lot of these practices already. You've grown up, crafting bids. You understand keeping sentences short. You understand removing passive voice. But the challenge is really the amount of time that you've got to spend on a bid, and the fact that there will be sections in a bid that have to be answered by other team members that are technical team members by usual definition, and they write in long sentences, overly complex and highfalutin terminology that is inaccessible. So what the platform helps do is allow them access for them to sheet dip their copy before they send it through to you, before you have to put it into your response. So that improves the quality. So it's an quality improvement platform. That's what we're about. And specifically what we're looking at, but it's very complicated and it deals with grammar and all the rest. It's simple to use, but dealing with a lot of complicated things to do with the English language. But but what key principles to take away, in addition to what Azan said, is okay, long sentences. You don't need any technology to let you know that you've got a long sentence. And most humans, if crafting content to begin with, will come out with a long sentence. So don't have any sentence longer than 20 words. Don't use passive voice or keep it less than 5% of your content. And passive voice is effectively where there's you're not attributing who's taken the action. So you see that a lot in government speak. And non-committal are, the slang for that is slopey shoulder conversation, where nobody's taken responsibility for what has to be done, So that you see them in insurance plans, you see them in a lot of these technical T's and C's. You'll even see them in the Facebook terms of use, by the way, just out of interest from a social perspective. So that passive voice is the second one, and then readability score. Okay, what you need to do is you need to use the readability score that is appropriate to your audience. If it's citizens, then that needs to be grade level 7 max. As we get older, if your community is getting older, over 65, you want to keep it down at that 6, 7 level, because the cognitive burden for reading becomes greater as we get older. So that's another consideration that we need to think about, from an outside-in perspective. And an easy way to do that is, well, look, at the end of any piece of content that's been produced, sheep dip the copy, make sure that it's at the target scores that you want it to be at. The beauty about the system that we've created is it also tells you how to improve. And not everybody has a lot of time to become English writer experts because they have to do their day job as well, but this helps them. And what we see is, look, as well as we do that, engineers, smart people that they are, they probably, a lot of them weren't great in English class anyways. That's generally an observation that I've made after, it's not in every case, but certainly in the 12 years that I've been in this industry, it's pretty true. People that are building rocket jets or, building major bridge infrastructure, they're not James Joyce, let's put it that way. And how do we take what they've got to express to the market? And you'll see. And look, one classic case, anybody who's ever looked at an inverter that's used for solar systems is a classic case of a manual that comes written by an engineer that absolutely nobody, even if you've got a PhD, could understand what it's saying, So look, it's that sort of element. And of course, you don't want that flowing into any, if you're working engineering solar projects or whatever, into the communication flow back. So anyways, that's a long way around to give you a piece of information about what we see as important and how we go about it.
Thanks, John. Thanks. And now that you've given us that piece of information, how about you show us what the system can do? And I think where we can improve as well is something we'd want to see in this platform.
Yeah. What I'd like to do first is, if I could, is just share something with you, and then I can go in and show you the platform.
Absolutely.
The most important thing that we find, I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully everybody can see it. And
You should have enabled. Yeah.
is that coming through now? Hopefully.
Yes. Something is coming through. Yes.
Hopefully.
A plain white slide.
Yeah. Is there some text coming through now?
No title. That's what I see.
Well, maybe I should.
I also just see a blank page. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not coming through. There must be something wrong with the connection. But let me talk to the why. Why is this important? We talked about it in a kind of a soft, general way. The importance, the qualitative reason for plain language, the qualitative reason. To a lesser degree, we talked about automation because that's in the platform as well. But why would we want to do this? Well, do we want more customers? Do we want to win this bid? Is this a must-win bid? That's why you want to be looking at systems like what we provide. Another, I don't know if anything is coming through yet. Has it come through? Can you see?
Not yet, John.
No. Okay.
I think try to reshare, unshare and reshare.
Yeah, I'll do that. But at the end of the day, it'll come down to, okay, what is the business case for doing anything new? You internally as a leader within the bid team, in the company, you know where the dead bodies are, so to speak. You know where the inefficiencies are. Some of the typical areas that we address, the number one is when you get an RFP, if it's a complex RFP, you've got to shred it, put it into a spreadsheet and share it around to all the participants that are going to answer to you, or answer the response. That can take up to 3 days. It's a very manual task. With our system, you can do it in 10 minutes. So it'll automatically shred out and it'll highlight risk terms like guarantee, Insure, that as Anne mentioned, automatically once the dictionaries are pre-populated. So straight away you can provide to the team. I'm going to stop sharing because this doesn't seem to be working. And I'm just going to go in and see if my screen share from my laptop you can see.
Okay.
Now, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. Okay, can you see the second page I've toggled onto? It's analyze your documents, analyze your web pages.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so just before I show you how it works, we really have to think about the why. Why do we want to do anything different? We want to do something different because we want to win more business, but we have to have a business case for the business to justify doing anything new because it usually involves some dollar cost or rand cost to do that. So there needs to be a clear and line to return on investment. So this is something we worked heavily on over the last, I would say particularly in the last 4 years, where we don't even sell our software anymore. We do a pilot with a company. We set it up and we capture metrics that are specific to them. So typical metrics from an industry could be save 3 days in the RFP response when they do the shred. Another, if it's acronym led kind of response, if there's a lot of acronyms being used, so abbreviated terms, it may take them a half day to actually turn that into, you normally have to define those in your response, depending on the type of bids that you're working on. So that's something that is a body of time that somebody manually has to either spend their work week on or their weekend on. And in a lot of cases in bidding, you're spending a lot of weekends. So what we say to the audience, and they can see it straight away, you will get some of your weekends back. So that's the first thing. So that's the reason why it's important to you as the bid manager looking at this, because you're always stuck for time. And there's a number of speed points there. One is the one that I mentioned earlier. You're getting content from subject matter experts and you have to rewrite it. And you may only have 24 hours left to get that out the door. That's a reality we've all experienced. So if we push back on the subject matter experts so you get a better quality of what they create to begin with, that gives you, maybe it only takes you an hour to do the final edit or 2 hours. So that's basically a day back into your life. That's good.
Sounds like heaven.
Yeah. So that's what we're about. But that's great, Philip, from your perspective. But the business then says, okay, well, what am I getting from this? That's like, I know that we don't want to necessarily speak in that way, but you have to think in that way if you want to build a business case. So what are they going to get out of it? Well, one of the pieces of work that we've done working with clients is also looking at the quality measurement and the impact that has on probability of win. So a typical probability of win on Shipley, I can't remember the exact amount, but I think if you're an incumbent, I think you've got close to 25-30%. You're already there almost, But what if you're not? How do you add to that? What we looked at is the elements that we're picking up in language help the response be more compliant. We help de-risk the term, the bid. So that's got an impact on the likelihood of win. And we did some work with Deloitte in London. It must be going back 8 years ago. And their leadership believed that they didn't win certain contracts because there was an insider influence or something of that nature. But when they went back and did the analysis, and most people don't have the time to do this, but they did, and they went back and they did the analysis on bids that they lost, they actually could see that they didn't accurately respond to the RFP. So there was gaps. And that's one of the most powerful things that we can talk to leadership about in your business, about, those gaps, which in some cases could cost you millions because you're over stating what you're going to do for the client. In other cases, there could be gaps that rule you out of a multi-million-dollar bid. We can capture those for you. So what's the impact of that on the bid? And basically it's, and they may well say to you, well, that's your job to do that, or the team's job to find that out. And in truth, that is the case, but we're human, we're busy, we're probably working multiple bids. And at the end of the day, what we need to do is put in place a process so that, God forbid, if we were hit by a bus, that the process continues on and they can still be performing and winning those bids. So that's the sort of conversation and that's the why. That why conversation is really important to get up front. The system itself then will save on average 60 hours on a bid cycle, on a complex bid cycle. On average, that's what we save. We've got a P-win, a probability P-win from our customers of somewhere between 7 and 9%. That's their data, not ours. And then when we talk about one of the important points that Anne mentioned, we've done some work in the insurance space particularly, and over a period of 3 years, we've analyzed the long sentences, we've analyzed the impact on their business of reducing call center traffic because they're producing better content and surfacing it to their customers. That they've saved close to just shy of $1 million Canadian per year. So there are clear dollar bottom line reasons why you need to kind of be looking like this. It does give you a competitive edge, allows you to win business. But at the end of the day, it will save you as a bid professional a whole host of time that will allow you to do a better job, which you want to do, to allow you to do more bids, which again is a business case back to your leader as to why this could work. But anyways, look, this is the simplest piece of software that you could possibly use. You don't even have to log into this. You can send your document to the email server, and within 20-30 seconds, you'll get a scorecard back on your writing and guidelines on how to improve it. But if you're the editor, this is what you can do. I can upload a document and PDF or Word. I can analyze a URL web page, or I can take a snippet and just put it in. So if I'm writing an email, I can, it's a lengthy email, and I just want to make sure that I get the message across clearly and simply. I can embed it here and analyze the text. So, this is available through a browser. You can use it in the cloud straight away now. I'd invite anybody on the line. You can sign up, and you can you can use it for free for a short period of time. And there's entry levels because one of the big challenges we've had historically in South Africa is that, we supply an enterprise solution that we sell to companies. So it costs money and costs a lot of money. So there has to be a real business case. But, you as an individual writer, you can access this, and what does it give you? So if I look at some of my analysis history, let me give you a piece of document. So here you go. This is just something that we've been creating for an event in Singapore. So this is one of our partners wrote, who are representing us there, wrote this document, and I just uploaded it here. So straight away, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
With the traffic lights. So straight away, you're getting visuals on traffic lights on long sentences, passive voice, readability, and grade level. So red is bad, green is good. So what you want to do is you want to edit this document. And on the document, it's highlighted where the problems are. So you can focus in straight away and make the edits. So here is grade level 12. Could you advise us of who in the Department of Defense procurement function we could speak with, or perhaps provide us with an introduction? There's 2 sentences there. So you can see, what we need to do is, can you please tell us who we need to discuss in procurement? Who should we discuss in procurement? Or who should we discuss this with in procurement? We need to just think about, like, that's somebody that has just downloaded the document, or just downloaded the idea from the brain into the document, I should say. What's interesting about this is okay, the platform will automatically do it. It'll also give you grammar flags, how to improve the grammar, like Grammarly, systems like that. Where it's more powerful than Grammarly is it allows you to customize it to your policy. So these watchwords are policy terms. So this is really important. When I talked earlier about descriptors, using the descriptors of the customer, or using plain language, Insure systematically, as Azan was saying, as opposed to Insure, 2 different things. But in terms of key terms we want to detox, we can put these in basically an Excel file, upload it in the system, and then it's available for everybody throughout the organization that's writing content to follow your guidelines. It's available for all the subject matter experts, and it changes all the time. And this is where, your knowledge, and Philip, I mentioned that I noticed that you had a kind of a knowledge ownership type of part of your role. So that expertise that you build yourself and bring to your clients, you can embed this with that client, and you can come back maybe quarterly to make sure that it's up to date on a on a service kind of as part of your work anyway. So that's where this becomes really powerful, because what happens, we're all human. If we do a workshop, within 6 weeks of doing a workshop on plain language, within good writing, 80% of it we forget. That's it. We're human, and our brains aren't meant to be reservoirs so much. So how do we get people to get to that better place, to cross that river to that better place of communication to the customer? Well, we can embed this, make sure it's available to everybody, and they can get across. And then after you leave the training session, or if it's an organization that's also doing business writing courses, this is something that will support, and they'll get better ROI for their business writing courses, because you know what? Those courses, there's no way for them to really test if there's any improvement, because it's one of these soft skill courses. Whereas with something like this is where it becomes really powerful. When you have people using it, you can see the quality performance by individuals, by teams over time. And we're seeing usage of the system, we're seeing content, we're seeing the grade level that's being produced, and it's getting closer to our targets. And we're seeing the watchwords, and if they're being picked up, if they're not being picked up, obviously people are adopting the words. But from a management perspective, if it's a quality-led organization, to be able to show for the first time the quality of what your team are producing for these bids, and to be able to present this back to leadership and say, look, this is what we're sending out to our customer, and look at our win rate, it's just gone up. It really, for the first time, helps you internally get more resources if you need it. But also, it's obviously helping the business. And, the board at board level, this sort of KPI data is what really resonates with them. And for the first time, this is what we offer. And that's why we're working with some of the bigger companies, Fortune 100 companies, because they haven't got that. They've got all the stack of tech that I'm sure you do as well. But what they need to be able to do is demonstrate quality improvement over time. And, because it only takes one mistake on a bid for all of the work that you've done in the last 10 years to be kind of forgotten, and everything is focused on that one mistake if it's something that's happened now. And we've got to get ahead of that, because it's the same if you're a marketing team. And I experienced it directly myself. We were launching products in Europe in 10 languages, and we did a great job. Team were fantastic, but there was a typo on the German language version. Just a simple typo that made the word look, we were German speakers, but that ruined everything. And that stuck with me, because all of the effort, all of the weekends that we put into the launch, it was just a deflator. And this helps you get ahead of all of those sort of issues. So that's roughly kind of gives you a little bit. I can spend 30 minutes going into further, but that's a little bit of what we're doing. I can show you the automation as well, but basically we can take an RFP, shred it, and give you an Excel format back within a few mouse clicks. And that speeds up time, gives you more time to work on quality. And that's really what it's about. As we go into the next 10 years, how is your role going to change? What are you expected to do for your company? And, is your win rate going to improve? Do you want it to improve? How do I, beat that number 2 competitor that I'm with? As we're going into 2022, now is the time to be thinking about, what should I be piloting to consider moving to the next level? So that that's why I was excited for the invite and just to share this with you. But if there's any questions, happy to take them.
There's I saw that one of our delegates, Rita would like to ask a question. John, Rita, you still there? Oh, she's just typed it. So Rita's asked, is brand policy the same as communication policy? For instance, the other day I was told that using the word rail in capital letters broke our brand policy. However, the industry I work in is rail, and the word is routinely written in capital letters. The rest of my company work in a different sector.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's different things for different people, but generally brand policy should start at the top of the tree. And your communication policy is a subset of it. So the brand is if that's the brand director that's saying that, then a company policy, they've made that decision, irrespective of what the industry is doing. So what we would say is, if working with that client, we would say, we would highlight this fact to them. Is this really how you want everything represented? And then follow through on it. But it's a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess it depends on, like you say, is it your company policy? Even if the company policy contradicts the industry standard.
Yes.
Yeah. Then we've got another question. Sorry.
Because certain companies take that stance deliberately to get attention to the brand.
Okay. That could be a tactic. Then Silas asking, is there a guarantee on information security? You mentioned this is a software as a service, it's in the cloud solution, not an on-prem. So what is the information security on this?
Yeah, so this is you have a choice. I think that's the first thing. And the choice is you can use hosted cloud, you can use your own private cloud, which you secure and you control the security protocols, or you can do an on-prem installation on your premises, which you absolutely is robust. So about 55% of our customers go for the latter. So the big names that I mentioned, that's what they do for security reasons, so that they can control everything. There is a cost, an additional cost for that, because you have to install a server license. If you use the cloud system, then you're not using a server. So it's more accessible, let's say, to you from a price perspective.
And then if you do use in the cloud, not your own private cloud or on-prem, I guess the same question, what is the information security protocol and guarantees?
Yeah, well, we don't recommend that you use the cloud if you're working on sensitive bits. So only use it for general communication or public-facing communication. So if it's public-facing content, then it makes sense to use the cloud system. There are some exceptions, but this is our general recommendation. Generally, if you're concerned about it and if you ask the question, it means that you probably need to host it yourself, not use the public cloud. It depends on the sector, like defense, government. They'll need to host it in your territory, for sure.
Yeah, one of our clients is in cybersecurity, and in a meeting we had with him a couple of weeks ago, I was horrified at how easy it is to get into any system. I want to say regardless of how secure you actually think it is. There's always a way in. And I guess even if it's on-prem, I mean, it's like any thief. If they want to get in, they're going to get in. It just depends on how long it takes that thief to break in and how many alarms gets tripped on the way. So,
the safest network is the disconnected network, is a piece of advice I got from a military person many years ago. And a lot of our clients actually have a segregated network that they're using for sensitive bits, so it's not connected to any internet. So that would be you would still have risk in terms of, people is the risk, but at the same time, it's probably as locked down as they're called skips, these secure compartmentalized environments. But it is possible to lock them down. May I ask the questioner what sector she works from, or is in what industry she's in?
Sorry, John, it's Scylla here. Hi.
Hi,
I work for PwC, so I think you'd understand where I'm coming from, considering you mentioned some of our, some other people in our sector as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Look,
so you understand we can't sneeze without permission.
No, and you're working with other people's data as well, I presume.
Yeah. Yes. Well, in this instance, obviously, from a proposal point of view, yes, there is. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of non-disclosure agreements and confidentiality, even around the RFPs that some of our clients issue to us. But So there's all sorts of. Hoops to jump through and so on. But it is. So that's always the first question we ask is, before we even start thinking about implementing something like this, it would be, can we jump through any of the, can we jump through these hoops first of all? And but that's great. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Security is a big thing. And I think, John, a follow-up question to that would be, what kind of organization does it make sense for them to use visible threat? Is it for everybody? Is it for larger organizations?
Yeah, you got to start with the why. So what is the value of the bid? How important strategically is this bid? And that will drive whether you should be looking at this. Also look at the culture in terms of the, quality improvement. Are they really serious as an organization about this? Is this, a key foot in their stool, so to speak? So it's more typically that will define it. Clearly, all the big four would use this in some respect. If you're talking about professional services, kind of auditing, cybersecurity consulting, that sort of stuff, in some way they would use this for efficiency gain. Back in the day, just to mention, one of the big challenges that those practices had was that two partners had to sign off a response before it was sent back to the client. Of course, those partners would have been on flights traveling all over Europe or wherever. But by using the VT writer and sending through the scores with them, it took off the time taken for that partner to be reviewing every single bid line item by line item. So that type of I think you need to be thinking about, is it an organizational culture that we want to be the top one, the top two, the top three? Those are the early adopters for sure, but everybody could use it. But, look, if you took anything away from this conversation today, and without any technology, and you looked at consistently long sentences, passive voice, and the readability score of what's being produced, then you're in a better place than, and if you do it consistently, than before this meeting. It's then, how consistently do we want to do it across the organization, and how much of a mark do we want to make this year or this coming year? In terms of budget, obviously, rand dollar exchange rate is tough. Fully get that. But let's face it, you have world beating. You're not just good at rugby, right? You've got some world beating companies coming out of South Africa that are world beating. In certain sectors, dominate the continent, etc. So those sort of organizations will be the ones that will be pioneering it. Standard Bank used to use us back in the day. In one of our first customers ever, actually. So I think it's financial services, professional services, engineering, complex bids, lots of bids, high value bids. We typically help there. The other area that we help is insurance, are organizations that have customer first, client first strategies, where they are treating this customer experience piece seriously, and they want all their touch points to be consistent, understandable, and as good to perfect as possible.
Thanks so much, John. Thanks for that. Sorry, Zon, we've run out of time, but we have a question from one of our attendees.
Rita, yes.
Yes, hi, John. I want to ask you, how do you deal with the localization of language? So, for instance, in our company, we have obviously customers, say, in the Americas, customers in Australia, customers in Europe, and they all use different English language, including in South Africa, for instance. And how do you deal with the localization of the terminology that you use? So, for instance, in my sector, you will use different words to name trains or trams or buses like that. They would have different specific terminology. So, how do you analyze the language that would be appropriate, say, in America, with the one that I would use in a bid in Europe? Is there a way in the system that allows you to distinguish when, a certain language is okay, but it's not okay in another country? It's a difficult question. I appreciate, but I'm trying to
no, it's a great question, because it's something we didn't touch on. So the system is primarily English-based, and to answer your question directly, we upload CSV files or what we call dictionaries. They come with, English American spelling, for instance, is one example. There's a couple of ways of doing it. So you could build a dictionary in VT Docs that is appropriate for your sector. And in building that dictionary, you can effectively list the alternative terms that shouldn't be used, okay, in the file that's uploaded in the system. And then anyone producing or working on the bid will be able to share that. It's a bit like the watchwords example that I showed in VT Writer. You can define, so it starts with the customer. So obviously you're in South Africa. So is your customer in the US? Then you would want to use US language. That would be a dictionary for US language. If it's in Australia, then they will have a derivative of British English. They have different descriptors and different adjectives that will be slightly different. So they have their own English language dictionary called the Macau.
Are you saying there's multiple dictionaries that you can create? So you can create one for Australian, you can create one for South Africa, and one for London, and
yeah, and that's explained a lot more plainly. So thank you.
plain language, John.
Yeah, exactly.
So multiple dictionaries. Is there a limit on the amount or the number of dictionaries that you can create?
No.
Then you would
So if you
apply it
literally-
to whichever document
theoretically-
you're working on.
I'm sorry. So
Sorry.
theoretically, you could add also like French dictionaries, Italian dictionaries, Spanish.
Yeah, so the system itself will read the language. So if it's Dutch Afrikaner, for example, it will be able to check that. It won't give you the detail as much as English because we don't speak Dutch Afrikaner yet. But it will highlight some of the key issues with the document. And the dictionaries are language independent, so they can be any language you want.
Okay.
John, Rita is actually, she's a global bid manager for, Rita, can I say the company name?
Yeah, sure.
From Ultra. So they have offices almost in every country in the world. So she herself is based in the UK.
Okay.
So
Great.
definitely languages, not just local in South Africa and Africa. It is all languages and all sorts of English.
Yeah. So probably the one we've got the most work. We do a lot of work with Canadian government, and they've mandated French and English as languages. So we've got probably the most support in French over others. We would have some dictionaries, what would be clear writing in French if you're doing any work in Canada, for example. And by the way, the dictionaries are available on our website. So they are. There's a dictionary marketplace, so so you can build upon existing dictionaries that have already been created. You can reuse those, so you don't have to start from everything from scratch.
Interesting. Very interesting. What a cool platform. Where do we sign? Where do we get a trial? Where do we sign up? Me.
Well, Zane speaks a lot more plainly than I, so I think the first stop is to contact Zane. Seriously, it's very straightforward. We're very easy to deal with. Really, you're on a journey to be a pioneer in your organization. You probably need to do a pilot to prove to the business that this makes sense. And we have a program in place where we support Zane's team with a program manager who's used to implementing this. And over a 3-month period, we'll get you and your team fully fluent and get the system fully customized with your dictionaries. And we'll capture metrics that you can represent back to management to show, I knew this was right, and here's the evidence.
The numbers don't lie.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. So
And
we
then
can
you
contact
mentioned-
Design.
And then there's that VT Writer for free that you mentioned on your website, where you can trial 3 or 5 websites or documents or snippets.
Yeah, look, if anybody on this call wants to have a follow-up to play with the system, if they email me or through a Zan email, we'll set you up with a trial sandbox to play with it. And what we'll do is we'll commit a couple of hours of a person to support you, to show you how to do certain things. As just you don't know us just yet, we'll be happy to support the work that Enfold are doing, and we'll do that gratis. So we'll set it up for you to play with it, and we can have some conversations.
Thank you, John. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
And my email address, Rita, is john.nolan@visiblethread.com. Beg your pardon, I didn't have that. I did have it on my slides, but I couldn't show my slides.
Let me quickly type it for you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, John. This has been a very insightful session. I'm also excited to free trial if I can and see how that would add value in my world, especially around the customer-facing documents, whether it's presentations or proposals, whatever the case might be. I'm excited to trial. And I don't know if you guys have any parting comments. I think the platform speaks for itself, how cool it is, how innovative it is, and how much it can add value in your life and save you a lot of time. 60 hours is a lot, and that would give you time to get to your reviews and review your proposals in more depth. Izan, any parting comments on your side?
Not much. Thank you, John. Thank you very much for your time and your insights. Thank you to everybody that attended and participated. Philippa, thank you very much for being such a wonderful host.
It is my pleasure. John, any parting comments from your end?
No, it was a pleasure to meet you virtually, and hopefully I'll have the pleasure to visit your beautiful country in the next couple of years and see you face to face.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be. Then maybe we can go to Mauritius after that.
My thoughts exactly, Philippa.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This was great. Thank you everyone for attending. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Stay blessed.